Corsair, our non-stimulant, thermogenic, and recomposition agent. Corsair is a super cool product because it's going to help you utilize turning your white adipose tissue, which is for storage of fat, into brown adipose tissue, which is going to help with energy production. So this is great to use for a competition prep or in your weight loss phase. So you can stack it with a stimulant-based thermogenic, or you could also use it in your off-season or muscle building phase to help keep you lean and mean. Corsair.
All right, everybody. Well, we've got finally a lot to talk about in the bikini world. Our first U.S. non-invite only Arnold bikini competitions. There's 2 of them this weekend. So we're going to talk about those briefly, talk about some of the things we're excited about. And then Lexi had a great idea for this week's podcast. We put out a Q&A.
Yeah.
So we're going to answer your guys' questions.
Those always seem to be very well received. I think the people like the Q&As.
Well, and Evan, I think, forgot to put his Q&A out, but
no, I put it up. It was just a few hours late.
Oh, well, that's fine because you still had 24 hours. So I think the reason I like the Q&As is because as coaches, we tend to focus on what we're doing and what we're thinking about. And so the Q&As helps us understand more of the collective thoughts of what's going on in people's heads. It keeps you more grounded into what's like really going on. You know, it's like with my YouTube videos. Sometimes I'll get a question like, oh, how does creatine work? And I'm like, what do you mean how's creatine? And I forget, I've been doing this for 30 years. Like there's always new people. There's new competitors. There's new people. So it's good to just kind of reel it back and go, okay, let me explain that concept. Because as much as we'd like to think, if you talk about something once, it's not out there forever. You got to keep.
Right. And I like the Q&As because I think that a lot of the questions that are asked are not necessarily big enough for us to make into a whole episode. So it allows us to hit a lot of different little kind of micro topics.
Yeah. So let's talk about real quickly so there's some new rules this year for anyone that's really kind of hasn't heard for pro bikini. The new rule is, first of all, the contracts are done digitally. So you go to, I think it's either IFBB Pro or it's one of the websites for the shows, and you submit your contract. Once you do that, you're on the list, and the list comes out and it does not change. So for years now, what would happen is the list would come out on Monday. The competitors that were still in prep that were considering a show would see who's on the list, and they would decide not to do it, or they would decide to do it. And so this is really going to change the game because right out of the gate, I think there's some surprises here.
Yeah, big time.
Big time.
Yeah, I think I like this. I think it's going to be really interesting, especially later in the season, because I feel like with this new strategy where like pros can't just jump in last minute, I feel like you see a lot more of that later in the year when people are trying to secure their O qualification. But it's gonna be really neat to see.
I mean, this is something that's gone on for a while where people talk about strategically picking shows, especially for an amateur, strategically picking a show based on the judges you get in front of. Same with pros, of course, with that. But most weekends, there's a few multiple shows when it comes to bikini. You have options. And like you said, most people would look, they'd find out what the weakest list is, and they would go to that show. I mean, even the show I did last year, there was, 7 or 8 Olympians that jumped in last second in the Hurricane that I did for men's physique.
Yeah.
In the last 2 days before the show.
They were all trying to dodge that Kaiki Pro guy, right?
Yeah. He's one that jumped in.
Yeah. Well, that's maybe he was waiting to see if, I don't know, Ryan Terry jumped on. I think
you never know.
Like, not for nothing. Listen, it's a professional sport, and some people were like, "Oh, I don't like that." Well, guess what? Those were the rules. And as a coach and as an athlete, you can't be blind to it. It's very expensive to travel to a show, and let's be real. Like, sometimes you go to a show and you're fighting for second. And in pro bikini and in pro men's physique now, second is a handshake and a check, and see you next weekend, because only one spot gets a qualification. There's no more points. There's no more. Now for some people that have maybe never placed before, getting in that top 5 is a huge bonus. But right now, coming out the gate, it's about getting Olympia qualified. And so let's talk a little bit about to me, the surprise show is the San Diego Pro, because I feel like if the season was different, neither of these 2 names would be on a list, and they would have been waiting to see who was on what list before they picked a show. I could be wrong. But immediately out of the gate, we have a battle of 2 girls that just got second at the Arnold.
Yeah. in San Diego.
I mean, this is not a walk in the park. No pro show is, but I think, when you see Amy on the list, you go, okay, she's going to be hard to beat. Tara's on the list. Okay, well, she just missed winning the Arnold by 1 point.
Yeah.
You know,
And it's like Ariel Barley's also on the list.
Ariel Barley, Brittany
So fun to
Gillespie, who got,
watch.
I think she got second at the Clash last year. Was it
She
second?
did.
She did.
Yeah.
It was her pro debut too. I
Yeah.
remember it
Second to
was-
Amy, yeah.
And she got second to Amy, and I was there.
It was
And after
impressive.
prejudging, they had not decided. I remember talking to the judges. I was like, "Oh, is there a clear winner?" They're like, "Absolutely not. It's going to come down to finals." And I was like, "Okay, so that tells you Brittany Gillespie is already. I don't know how she looks right now, but I also see Anya Nicholson on there, who's got a phenomenal physique. Kim Bonilla Adams. So it's going to be a fun show. Like, there's some, pro bikini is just getting more and more kind of crazy as time passes. So that one's in San Diego. And then in our backyard, the show where I thought for sure Amy was coming, because I could have swore someone told me or she mentioned it, or I thought for sure she was coming to this show because she's won it before. And I think the Clash has kind of a history of girls doing well here and then doing well at the Olympia. Issa did it and she won the Olympia, and Ashley's won this show, and Lauren Dannemiller won the show to get qualified, and then that year she got top 10 at the Olympia. So like you see the girls do well at this show and it carries over.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then,
I kind of thought the same thing. I thought she would come to maybe defend her title, but she lives in Las Vegas, so I mean,
Yeah.
it makes sense. That's a long trip, going from West Coast to almost East Coast. That's a lot on the body, so I can see why she would have stayed.
one thing people don't realize about Vegas is it's a really high elevation as well. So when you come to Florida, the humidity change and the elevation change can really mess with you a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
And then obviously, like a 30-minute flight versus a 5-hour flight.
Right, 100%.
And I also think that her physique lines up with West Coast judging very, very well.
Well, so I'm guessing that those judges are going to be, because Sandy's going to be at the Clash. So I don't think any of the Pittsburgh judges are going to fly out there. Muscle contest is usually the El Gundy.
Yeah,
judges.
Tamer and Tarek, yeah.
Yeah, and I think they were judging Legion when she won that.
Well, they typically like some more muscle, and she's got muscle on her, so I think it's going to go well for her.
Yeah. So yeah,
it makes sense.
So and this was what I was hoping would happen this year, is that you would get lineups like the Clash, where you don't have a clear dominant bikini pro, because what's going to happen is usually when this list comes out, then you're going to get someone to jump in that's been to the Olympia, that's a top 10, top 15 Olympian historically, that just goes, okay, cool. There's nobody on there that intimidates me. Let's go get our qualification. And then everybody on this list is just waiting on pins and needles until they see who's actually at check-ins on Friday.
Right. Yeah, I think this is it will be fun, because I think I think we're all three going to be at the Clash too. It'll be cool to kind of just see what happens, since there isn't a clear defined winner. I mean, there's 2 girls on the list that have been to the Olympia before, but I don't know.
Yeah, I would say it's between Yulia Marie, and then I'm going to throw Ali Vathauer in there, because if she looks anything like she looked last year, oof.
I think something that, I would say Allie, I think, is definitely going to be up there. She hasn't posted a ton on her Instagram. She's kind of kept this prep private, but she has such a beautiful stage presence. And Paul, we talked about this last week with Sandy. We even brought her name up, and Sandy was talking about how she just used her as an example. Like, she just steps on stage and it's like, boom, she is there. Like, she just graces the stage, her stage presence. So I don't know. I definitely could see her being up there for sure if she comes on, if she comes in on point.
Yeah, if she comes in on point, she's gonna be tough to beat.
I don't want to brag about my 3 girls. They all checked in today. Everything is on path for them. So this is me and Amanda Macy's first show together.
She looks incredible.
She looks awesome.
This is me and Christy and Sandy's first show together. And then I've done a few shows with Kate Aurora last year, but she looks much better than she did last year. So I'm excited for all those 3, and just, I think I'm just going to be able to sit back. I don't really have a lot of anticipation. I just want to see what happens. Even so, I don't know if you guys know her, but Diana Arsenyeva, she's on the list as second. She goes by DJ Volkova on Instagram. She's a Russian girl that trains out of Brett's gym. I was just posing with her 2 weeks ago, and she looks incredible. She gives me Janet Leuk vibes. She's tall,
Oh,
long limbed, great like shape and beauty and muscularity. So the thing about pro bikini division is like these girls get their pro card, they can disappear for a year or two and come back, and you're just like, well, who are you? Ari's a good example from last year. Like there are some girls out there that just you don't see them and you don't think they're not there, so when people are like, oh, this is the call out, you don't know until they walk out.
no. I think that's what makes this show super exciting. Is just there isn't a clear defined winner, and I don't know, bikini's exciting. Anybody could take it. I feel
I don't know about you guys, but I'm a little neurotic about my sleep. And we all know in order to feel our best, build muscle, lose body fat, sleep is a big part of it. When I started incorporating cured nightcaps as part of my wind down routine, it truly changed the game in terms of having a good night's quality sleep and waking up feeling refreshed. The thing that makes the nightcap stand out isn't the already properly dosed CBD to help with general aches, discomfort, and mood, but it's the added CBN that takes this product to the next level. CBN supports your body's natural sleep rhythms throughout the night for deep restorative sleep that leaves you feeling ready to take on anything the next day. No grogginess or harsh side effects. I like to take these nightcaps with me when I'm traveling or if I'm experiencing higher stress than normal. Pairing the nightcaps with either Zen or a few drops of one of their CBD oils really hits the spot. Making sure to check out all of Cured's amazing products online. Use the code, all one word, for a discount at checkout.
I feel like this is like the start of the season for us in bodybuilding. I don't know about you guys, but this compares to like how people get all excited when like baseball starts, which I know that's probably
Same.
a bad
Listen, I'm
like, you
actually,
love baseball.
it's funny you mentioned that because opening day is Thursday for the Rays.
Yeah, yep. It's like the same concept. Like I get so excited that the season is starting. We're gonna start to have these pro shows every weekend. But yeah. I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, and it starts off quick. I mean, it immediately goes the following weekend. There's 2 pro shows, one in the UK that I'll be at, and then one in Charlotte, right? April 6th. Is that the Charlotte Pro? Yeah, and then you got Wasatch right after that.
Mhm.
Then we're into Girl Power. Then you're into Pittsburgh Pro, New York Pro. So it's gonna
coming quick.
speed up quick. So yeah, I think we'll be documenting it so you guys can follow any of our social medias. We're all gonna be there, right? You guys are all coming?
Yep.
I fly back in early that morning, but I'll be there.
Yeah. And I think I'll have our shirts by then, Evan.
I was
they've
gonna
had it
ask you
for a
about
few
that.
days. Yeah, we approved so all right, so that's it for bikini competition talk. We're very excited about that, and then we'll probably be able to do a review for our next podcast.
Yeah. I was considering maybe doing some YouTube footage of the show, but I know that there's also a live stream and I want to be respectful of that. I know sometimes if there's a live stream, they don't let you like film, so we'll see.
Yeah, usually Joe's pretty cool with letting you film as long as you're not live streaming, because if you're just putting clips out, I don't think that interferes with a live stream. No one's trying to watch a show through someone's stories.
Yeah, that's true, especially if it's going to be delayed on YouTube a few days later. So that's a good point.
So, and what I'll usually do is I'll take the live stream, download it, and then make content out of that so I can talk about the call outs and stuff.
It's a great idea.
All right. Well, since this podcast was your idea, why don't we start with you, Lex?
All right. So, okay. Let me look for a good one to start off with. Okay. So this is a good one to start with. What is, in your guys' opinion, the most common mistake you see first-time competitors making?
You guys start. I'm ordering a Monster.
The most common?
Yeah, just like if there's one thing that you can think of that
I
the
got
most
it.
common
I know
mistake-
mine, but I don't want to
The
steal yours.
bikini?
First
The
time
most-
competitors. Don't make
Yeah,
it
just
bikini.
competitors generally.
Oh,
What is the first thing that comes to your mind? 'Cause I can think of a couple things, but I personally, I think one of the one I see being a big one, especially for bikini, is girls not like thinking they have more muscle than they do, and
Yeah, that's
thinking just
bodybuilding, yeah.
because. And I figured that may be yours too, Evan, because I feel like a lot of times first time competitors overshoot how much muscle they have, and then they lean down and realize, oh crap, like they've got muscle, but it's not enough muscle to get them by with bikini, right? So I think that's probably the biggest. That's the
Yeah.
thing. That's the biggest one I can think of.
I would agree with that. I don't know if that's a mistake nor a misconception with it, but I
Yeah.
100% agree. And I hear this more times than I can count. My coach dieted off all my muscle. I'm like, you just didn't have a lot to begin with. Hate to tell you. Um, I would think probably the biggest mistake I would see is competitors not giving themselves enough time for their first show.
Damn you. That was mine.
Now that was your fault.
Especially females. Especially females. Guys, you can, to be honest, a guy you can pretty much beat into the gutter and they can respond fine. Females, you can't do that with. It's an entirely different ballgame, an entirely different approach. That's a reason that people typically kind of specialize, right? Like you'll see people like us that work with a lot of females because it's a different process than working with guys. And I feel like as a whole, though, it's probably not given enough time. But specifically for bikini, I want to throw this in there for a PSA for everyone. If you have not competed before, learn to walk in heels, please.
Yeah, wear them around the house, wear them in the
Yes.
kitchen. Yeah,
That's a huge one. Huge,
I
huge.
think I think that could kind of go along with another mistake too. I feel like a lot of girls underestimate how hard it is to pose. Like some girls just kind of think, "Oh, I'll just really practice a lot the last couple weeks before my show." But very few girls can get by with that. Maybe if you were like a past gymnast, dancer, you can kind of get by with that, but most girls need to be practicing their posing way before they even start prep.
Yeah, so my thing was going to be like picking a show date and just being like,
Yeah.
I'm just competing on this date, which usually ends up with, okay, we're running out of time. It's creating stress. So then you start taking tactics that lead you to have a worse physique because of the date of the show versus getting on stage when you're actually ready.
Mhm.
So
Big one.
I mean, the more you compete, the more you can start to kind of predict your show dates. But when you're early to competing, you know, if you have a show you absolutely want to do, give yourselves, this is going to sound crazy to some people, give yourself 6 months to prep for it. If so you
Honestly.
can take some breaks, so you can, but don't just go, oh, there's a show I'm going to sign up for 12 weeks of prep with a coach and just do 12 weeks of prep.
Oh, that could be enough.
Yeah, it's 12 weeks of prep is not enough for most pros. It sure as hell ain't going to be enough for an amateur. So yeah, that would be the biggest mistake I would see is like, Evan said not giving yourself enough time. I would say creating a deadline that doesn't fit what's right for you.
And I can piggyback off that a little bit. I start working with a lot of clients, especially over the past probably 6 months that were in prep. And it wasn't going so well with their coach, and then they reach out and I do my best to try to help them as long as it's doable. And I can't tell you how many times I will tell these people like, oh, you should not do this show. Like, because I'm brutally honest, I'm like, you're not going to be ready. I don't care what we do, you're not going to be ready. And I would probably say 75% of their comments back are, I've already committed, already have family flying in, I've already booked the hotel, I've already paid for everything, everything's already paid for, I have to do it. And it's just, that's, first of all, that's why it's important to get with a coach that actually has competed and understands competing, because I tell people never to register that early for a show because you never know what can happen. And then you lock yourself in, especially if it's a big financial, expenditure. People don't want to take the hit on that. And I understand it. I understand it.
Yeah, it just puts unnecessary stress on you if you sign up for a show way far out. I like to kind of take the approach, and I understand this is not going to be something everybody can do. Really, just kind of, I guess, depends where you live. And since we're in Florida, we're kind of blessed in this standpoint. But just starting prep and then choosing your show when you are a little bit closer to that like stage mean set point, then just takes. I don't know. For me personally, it takes a little bit of stress off of one's plate.
See, I'm in the opinion of similar to that, but I'm like, hey, pick a show. Let's have a goal show. But that
Mhm.
show ain't set in stone
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we need to set a timeline in there and say, okay, we got this amount of time. Let's go ahead and shoot for this show. But if it doesn't happen, and normally like 3 or 4 weeks out or 4 weeks out, you can have a good idea if you're going to make it there or not. And at that time, you can make the decision. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and push this back a little bit, or let's go ahead and keep it with the plan.
Yep.
Yep. You get better with time. You don't get worse with time. Now,
Mhm.
I love the idea of picking a show that has some importance to you, like a show in your hometown or a show that you really you want to go to because you like the city. But listen, I got bad news for you. If you show up at a show that I'm at, you're going to get your ass kicked if your girls aren't ready, if you're not ready. Like, listen, I'm planning. I've got a girl getting on stage at the Clash that we've been planning this show for 18 months. When she reached out to me, she had just competed and she's like, I want to do the Clash in 2024. You think she ain't ready? You know what I'm saying? Like, she's literally, that's only been her focus for 18 months. It's only her second show. She's going to come out the gates swinging. Doesn't mean she'll win. Doesn't mean any of that stuff. But I'm just saying, like, that's the level of, you know, now if you're just going to do a show for fun, you just want to get on stage, cool. But just know that there's levels to this shit.
There's
Like,
levels to this game.
we are, you know, taking this very seriously at this level. Like Pro Physique, we are putting a product on stage, athletes on stage that we are very proud of, that, you know, these girls and guys are just working incredibly hard. They're very detailed. And so, yeah, that doesn't guarantee you anything, but I can tell you there's a reason why we are constantly doing very well at shows, and just, you know, just very excited about like what you're seeing on stage.
Mhm.
Win or lose, I'm just like, wow, like that's the look that I wanted for you. So yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. So Evan, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I thought this was a good one because this can go a couple different directions on it. This is from a figure competitor, a little bit outside of our normal talk here, but good question.
I have a figure girl right now.
There you go. All right.
Yeah, it's friend's girlfriend.
Average body fat to expect getting down, or what is the average body fat you think of a figure competitor on stage?
What level?
Let's do both.
NPC.
NPC and pro. Well, let's, because we're talking big. Let's talk about national level and
Yeah, I'd say NPC 12, nationals 10 to 9, Olympia 7.
My answer to that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Lexi.
No, I was going to agree with that. But I also think too many people overthink body fat
Damn it.
percent. In the
Damn it.
set, yeah, that I take your answer. We're all on the same wavelength today. I think way too many people overthink body fat percentage, and like it really just comes down to that look, right? Most people are going to fall within that realm of that body fat percentage if you want like a general gauge, right? But you know, I have people that, you know, they're like, oh, should I get my body fat measured? And I'm like, you can if you want to, if you like the data, that's great. But when you get on stage, there's nothing that the judges look down at that says, oh, this competitor, oh, she's at 8% body fat, right? It really just comes down to the look, and everybody looks a little bit different at different body fat percentages.
And I'm going to annoy people with this. There is no super accurate way to take your body fat percentage. There's a million variables that fall into that. You know, calipers can be super great if you have someone that's experienced doing them. You have a super nice set of them and they do them at the same consistent time each day. Your water balance can throw that stuff off. How much you eat, inflammation can throw that off. I mean, I've done a DEXA scan 2 days back to back and read 3 to 4% difference in my body fat because I was inflamed and one day I wasn't. And I'm also a little bit wider, which means I don't necessarily fit that much in, or fit that great into a DEXA scan. The end body, look, all that stuff to me, all it does is get in your head. That's it. And it doesn't matter. Like, who cares what your body fat percentage is? It doesn't matter. It's the same thing. Like, well, what do people weigh on stage? That doesn't matter either.
Exactly.
How much do you bench press? These questions are people that I feel like that aren't really deep into the sport, because these aren't questions we ask. I don't know any competitor who's like, what's your body fat percentage? To me, that is very similar to in high school saying, what do you bench?
Well, yeah, because it's like, okay, what do you bench? Okay, well, are we talking about at a meet with a pause? Are we talking about bouncing that shit off my chest? What do you weigh? You talking about in the morning fast? You talking about on a high carb day? Like, what's your body fat percentage? We talking about DEXA? We talking about what? So what are we talking about here, man? We talking about the playoffs?
Playoffs?
So yeah, like the reason I gave numbers is because, you know, seeing my competitors get body fat tests. I mean, I've had bikini competitors. I mean, Evan, you'll remember this very clearly. Brittany Hamilton flexing her glute in 2022 and just seeing the full striations. She was well below 10% body fat.
Yeah.
But when you bring the food way up, that looks beautiful, right? So like, again, no one on stage gives a crap. But yeah, I would say figure, it's more about the visuals. So here's my figure girl. This is what I told her when we're getting on stage, because she wanted to do Clash. I said, no, we're not getting on stage till you're figure lean. I want quads separated from the knee to the hip. I want to see the lines in the front pose from the knee to the hip. That's when figure is ready, because that means your lower back is in. That means your glutes are in. When the upper quad is separated and you can hit a front relax and just stand there and your quads go like that, that's stage ready for figure. If you don't have that, I mean, you can do figure because right now the figure division is kind of in a state where like there's literally shows I've seen with like 6 or 8 total figure girls showing up.
It is the weirdest thing because you go to an NPC show, there's very, very few figure competitors. You go to a figure pro show, and there's 2,000 of them. I
Yeah,
feel like.
there's not a lot of figure pro shows anymore, so that's part of it.
Yeah.
So they're all fighting. But yeah, and I think the figure division, I think it's going to make a comeback because I've had more interest in it this last year. But I've also seen, like, if you look at some of the overall photos from some of the shows, you look at the figure overall winner, and they're smaller and not as lean as the bikini overall winner. Girls just aren't entering the division as much, I think. So I'm excited
Yep.
about Kirsten, my competitor, because she's actually jacked, and when she's conditioned, it's going to be fun to have her on stage. But that's figure. You've got to have separation, and you've got to know how to hit your quarter turns, and it's a fun division if that's what excites you.
Yep. All right, Paul, what do you have question wise?
Yeah, so I think my favorite question, I'll start with that one, is how do you know when to push versus when to scale back as a coach? Like, you know, you're looking at your client, you're like, okay, we need to be leaner. We're not seeing progress. How do you know when to push them versus how to scale back? And I think for me, I'll start with me. For me, it all just comes down to the person's tone in their voice, how they're responding, and then we ask for, we call them wellness scores. So stress, sleep, strength. And when I notice hunger, when I notice the hunger score is way up, the stress score is way up, the sleep score is way down, the strength score is way down, that's when I'll be like, hey, can you jump on a call? Okay, so yeah, we need to lose 4 more pounds. We got 6 weeks. We're already at double cardio and low calories. Okay, it's time. Like, I'll say this, the leaner you are, the more likely I am to give you one. I'll never do it when there's momentum. Like, if someone's like, I'm really tired, I'm like, but you just dropped 2 pounds this week, so we're gonna keep going. Your body, you know, is responding. So I'll say, like, I really believe in momentum, and I really believe in, hey, if I just made a substantial change to your diet and your cardio and the scale went up, something's going on, inflammation, you know, lack of recovery. That's kind of my litmus for some recovery versus pushing more.
That's a really good outlook, especially if it's like multiple weeks, right? Like if you drop someone's food heavy and pull their cardio up and the weight doesn't fall the first week, sometimes it could be inflammation for sure. But if it happens like multiple weeks in a row with that, yeah, it's probably something's happening, right? And that's why biofeedback is so important too. Like, how's your stress? How's your sleep? How's your recovery? How are you doing mentally with that? Are you stressing over it? Because if you're stressing over that scale too, that's necessarily not going to be the biggest thing. But Paul, I love what you said about not getting in the way of momentum. And that's one of the hardest things as a coach, because we do care about our athletes a lot. And when they say, hey, I'm really tired, like, this is hard. I'm feeling wore out. It's like, but you dropped 2 pounds and we've been stuck forever. And now everything is working.
Yeah.
Now is not the time to pull back on it. It's not the time.
It is the time to get a monster. I'll be right back.
Okay.
So yeah, I think the biofeedback markers are very, very helpful. Honestly too, that's why it helps staying with a coach for multiple shows too. So you can learn the athlete, because that is really important. Because I was talking with my buddy the other day about, like, there's everyone's idea of what's tough is different, and every idea of what pain is different. It's different for every person. If it's a competitor that hasn't competed much before, they can be 10 pounds away from their stage weight and feel like they are dead to the world.
Yeah.
I'm like, just wait until you actually get stage lean.
Oh,
And
I
then it
know.
is a completely different feeling. But you don't know what you don't know, right? You don't know what that feeling is. It's like trying to describe color to a blind person. Until you've been to that point of leanness before, you don't know what it feels like. And it's not fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's not
Yeah.
fun.
I put a lot of like preface and validity in the wellness scores when deciding, you know, whether we push or pull, right? So I totally agree with everything both of you guys said. But I think, you know, if one thing that always sticks out to me is if a client, let's say, like they're not recovering well from their training. Let's say we're doing everything we should be doing from a recovery standpoint. They're taking their rest days. We're doing Epsom salt baths, and you know, maybe they're telling me, oh, my legs just feel like bricks all the time. They're just super tight and just heavy. That's a good sign to me that we're probably holding on to a lot of inflammation, and it's probably going to be to our benefit to pull back, not just throw more cardio on them or bring their food down. But that's where I would say I put most of my like emphasis on when deciding whether to push or whether to pull.
Good one.
That nailed it. It's actually being a coach.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually checking in with your clients regularly. It's actually collecting data. Sometimes it's hearing their voice. Sometimes I'll be like, man, I've got this girl on 70 carbs and 90 minutes of cardio. And they'll get on the phone. They'll be like, hey, coach, how are you? And I'm like, oh, you doing good? Yeah, I'm doing great. Okay, let's keep going. Like sometimes, as a coach, you worry about your client more than they need to be worried about. So some people, they just handle the
Yep.
process differently. And another one for me is I'll ask them. I'll say, hey, how do you feel about if we go hard for 3 days? Let's do it. I'm in. Before you can even get the question out, they're ready to answer. This is where I probably text, FaceTime, and call my clients more than I ever have at any point, because I'll just be like, hey, let's just chat for 5 seconds. Let me just hear from you, because you can hear it in their voice. If they're like, hey, coach, yeah, I guess I could do 3 days. I had a girl that was in prep, and I just said, hey, we're not competing. And she was like, thank you. Thank you. I said, we're not going to compete until the fall. She was like, thank you. She was, halfway through prep, and I'm like, this is just not. And she was so grateful. And I'm like, yeah, but
Yeah.
I've coached you for 3 years. I know your body. It's not responding. We just competed last year. Let's just give you a break. You're too good. I was worried that she was going to be like, upset. She was like grateful. She's like, oh, you got to remember, guys, sometimes, if you're a coach, your clients want to please you. They want to make you
Uh-huh.
happy. And she thought she was letting me down. I'm like, you can't let me down. I get to work with the greatest popular. I'm not one of those coaches that's going to put my athletes in shows just to make a name for myself. I'm done with that's not me. That's other coaches. We want the best result for the athlete, not to just run everyone into the ground to kick them off the cliff so they get a trophy or get a pro card or get a win, whatever. But then, the next 2 years are spent fixing themselves.
Yeah.
I think something I learned from you, Paul, years ago that I think is really, really helpful too is another big thing to know when to push and when to pull back is how long the person has been competing. I think that is really important to take into account. If it's someone's first show, chances are I'm only going to push you so hard. Now, if you want to push harder, like you said, we'll get on the phone, we'll have a conversation, see if you feel comfortable with it. And if you feel good with that, and it's not going to disrupt every relationship in your life, which I do worry about with first-time competitors. They're like, I'll do anything. And a lot of them will do anything, including blow up their relationships, blow their work up, blow everything else up to get on stage. So we have to be able to try to manage all aspects of this. And
Well, and
being truthful and
also
honest.
part of that can be because you made me think of a client you had last year, Evan, that you're like, man, I feel like I'm not even pushing this guy this hard, but every time he checks in, he's like, yeah, I just had a big cheat day. I didn't go to the gym. And you're like, dude, we're not even like at the hard part yet. Like this isn't
No.
going to go well. So also getting that feedback from people, if they're like, coach, I wasn't able to stick to my macros. I had to miss 2 cardio sessions. Like, that's actual coaching. It's not just
Yeah.
here's a plan and then I'll talk to you every 10 days or 2 weeks or at the end of prep and we'll figure this out. No, it's staying on
Yeah.
top of this person. And honestly, at the end of prep, it's multiple contacts per week for me.
Yeah.
I had a good call, a conversation I had with one of my clients. I won't go into detail on this one, but the check-in that they sent said, I just feel like I'm not going to be ready. Like I've never been ready. And I feel like I'm just not made for this. And my response was, well, you haven't followed the plan. You didn't do half the cardio sessions. So yeah, you're not going to be ready.
Right.
You're not. And I don't know what to tell you about this. You're worried you're not going to be ready and you're not going to be ready because you overate every day and you did half the cardio sessions.
It's
So
self-sabotage.
yes, you have a right to feel like that.
They're telling themselves, so they're just going, well, what's the point? And then
Yeah.
it's a vicious cycle. Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
this particular person got back on the ball. I think they'll be good. But sometimes you have to be brutally honest.
Oh,
with people.
tough love
to
is
be.
probably the thing as a coach that it takes a while to learn because you're like, okay, I don't want to upset this person.
Mhm.
I had to have a difficult conversation with a very good pro that I coached last year. And I basically had to have a come to Jesus moment with terrible check-ins and, lack of kind of accountability. And I had to give tough love. And it just, at that point in my coaching career, I know like this is the right thing to do. And so I think coaching, there is a period of, you want to make your clients happy and you want to be the best coach possible, but you also have like this imposter syndrome and you worry. I'm past all that. I'm done with that. Right. So it's there. It takes a while as a coach to get comfortable being confident in your responses that you're doing the right thing, and you being respectful and saying it the right way is important. But there is a time and a place where you have to go, okay, putting my foot down. This is the way it is, or goodbye. And sometimes goodbye is a great thing.
It is.
Yeah, and I think I see this a lot too, like with consult calls, right? Of girls that maybe they've never competed before, maybe they have, and they get on the phone and they have this idea of like, oh, I want to do this show, and then you kind of start to talk to them and figure out they are in no way, shape, or form in a place to prep, right? And it's hard to have that conversation with them because you're potentially turning down we're not turning down a client, but they're potentially not going to sign up with you if you tell them what they don't want to hear. But that's I think what makes us good coaches too, is we're not going to compromise our morale just to sign somebody up and collect a paycheck from them.
Oh, not worth it.
Yeah.
All right, Lexi. So let's go back around to the top of the order.
Okay, so how many calories is too low, or how many macros is too low for somebody to start prep with? So
4.
I think this is what?
4.
4 calories. Okay, yes, 4 calories. Well, I think that this is definitely going to be an it depends question, and the first thing it's going to depend upon is going to be how much weight you have to drop in total, right?
I was gonna say, it would be cool, Lexi. We could actually probably create it. I'll have my digital team get right on it. But
Yeah.
so imagine there was like a sliding scale, right? And the slide bar was the calories,
Uh-huh.
and then it slid you more body fat, less body fat, right? So the more calories you
Oh,
have,
that's
the
cool.
more your body fat can go up. And the closer you are to stage weight, the lower your calories can be, because that's basically what you're about to say, right?
Basically.
Exactly what I'm about to say. Because like I think back to when I did my first prep with you, Paul, I was definitely I didn't have that far to go to get stage lean. I did not start with my macros that high. But I could get away with it because I didn't have as much body fat to drop, right? So it really just depends where you're starting a prep from. The more weight you have to lose, you're going to want more food. Whereas if you're not that far off the mark, you can probably get away with not starting prep with a super crazy high amount of food.
Exactly.
Yep. All depends how lean you are and how far you got to go.
Yeah.
That's honestly the answer it is. I mean,
Well,
a
I'm going
person
to give
can
some
be
numbers.
Yeah,
I like,
'cause you have like I know, Paul, I know you have
15
like
times.
like the equation.
so yeah. I mean, because the nice thing about our update system is it actually tracks this now. So I can actually look at this data, and I'm working with Marissa on creating reports, because I just had a girl check in, trying to remember who it was. Oh, Blanca Gonzalez. She's 101 pounds. Now, before you guys worry about her, she's like 4'10",
Yeah.
4'11". She's a tiny girl. Evan, you met her last year at the Texas Pro.
Yep. I know exactly what you're talking about.
She just checked in. She's at 2,040 calories at 101 pounds. So she's at 20 times her body weight in calories.
She's fine.
And she's pretty little yoked, so I got excited about that, because I'm like, okay, cool. So that's my data is 15 to 20 times your body weight in calories is like my happy place for starting a prep. She is a macronator because she's also very lean right now. She's, I think she competed at 91 at nationals. So like she's already in but so like this data is very cool for me because it shows you it's like, obviously everyone's unique, but if we can actually put together some standardized things, I did that presentation at the Command the Stage this year where I talked about creating some coaching practices. Like there is no one like guideline for contest prep. Where should you be? And that's something I would like to be able to create, as my career goes along, because you see things so often that now I've learned now I can start to actually put things into place and go, okay, if you're 15 pounds over stage weight and you're at 15 times body weight in calories, boom, we are at the sweet spot, especially if your activity's low. Or, okay, I'm at 11 times body weight in calories and I've got 20 pounds to lose. Okay. It ain't happening.
Well, yeah, like you said, there's exceptions to every rule, but those are exceptions. Everyone's not an exception. It's a rule for a reason. It's it's because it's the vast majority of circumstances.
And I've had girls. Okay, so I've had girls that their calories were too low and they had too much body fat left to lose. but they said, Coach, I'd like to try anyway. And I said, cool. So we're just going to have to take more recovery throughout. We're going to have to do more diet breaks. And I'll never forget Brittany Schulman, the first year we worked together, she was in a terrible spot, 30 pounds over stage weight, eating hardly anything. So that first prep we did together was like a grind fest. It was like double cardio, low carbs, but a diet break every 3 or 4 weeks. And we got her on stage and she ended up winning an overall. But now she's eating 18 times her body weight in calories and she's 12 pounds over stage weight or 15 pounds. You know what I'm saying? So like you can do it, but it's just going to be a different process.
It is going to be a different process. And a big part of it too is, and I had a conversation with somebody like this the other day, is when you do that with people and you have to push them that far, it's that they have to understand in those diet breaks, they have to control themselves in those diet breaks. Because if you don't, it's going to go poorly.
Hey guys, my tow truck is here. I have to go downstairs. I forgot someone's picking up my car today to get work done. So keep going. I'll be right back.
All right.
Another intermission.
Another
okay.
intermission.
So, and you know what? Okay, so this can I want to go back really quickly and kind of stem off of this question and relay it to the first question we talked about, biggest mistakes like first time competitors make. I think that setting yourself up to be in an optimal starting point for prep is super important. And therefore, I see a big mistake first time competitors making is assuming, oh, I'm going to hire a coach when I want to start prep, right?
Yep.
And we've talked about this before, that yes, you can get by with doing that. But I think I know you, myself, and I'm sure Paul would say the same thing. We prefer to work with clients well before they start a prep, right?
Yep.
And there is usually those clients that work with you for a good amount of time before you start or before they start a prep are usually more successful when it comes down to it, just with being responsive in prep, with how they look on stage, just being happier overall. But I think that's another thing I wanted to touch on just as it kind of relates to this question and the first question.
Leslie, you're absolutely correct. I mean, that is the most home run answer you could probably ever give with that is the experiences that I know at least my clients have when I've worked with them for at least like maybe 6 months before we start a prep, it is night and day difference. Then by the time we get a show around, it's about a year since I start working with them. And it is just night and day difference because we can recomp. Because 99% of the people I work with, if I know we're going to start a prep in 3 or 4 months after starting working, we don't go into a building phase or anything like that. I literally just do a recomp with them. And we a lot of times their body weight doesn't change. But when we show pictures of when they started to where they are now, it is like a night and day difference with it.
Yes.
Night and day.
I feel like those transformations that like listeners are probably see us post about like those clients and it seems like they're unicorns. They're probably not unicorns. They're probably just, they've been putting in the work for a long time with us. The reason they're responding so well is because they put in a lot of work on the back end before even starting prep, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's important to talk about. Do you have another good question that you want to put out there?
Yeah. One more thing, you talked about the unicorn thing. I had a conversation with a client yesterday that came to me and she knew it was going to be a while before she was able to compete because she was heavier to start. We've done a real good job. We've had to push her really hard to get to the point that she's at right now. But she feels like she has to be perfect. And her check-in yesterday, it said, I just feel like I could be perfect like all of your other clients are. And I'm like, well, first of all, everyone is not perfect. I was like, and also too, you got to know the part of the journey that you're in here. Like where she is, her food is low, her cardio is high, and we are still a ways away from stage. So when you look at it like that, I'm like, now when you're at the point they are, it'll be easy for you. But it's hard for people to see the forest of the trees when it comes to that.
Yeah, and I've heard that too from clients before, and it's like they're making a general assumption too, right? Because it's really easy to look at people that you aspire to look like, or that you see on social media seemingly having it quote unquote easy or maintaining their physique easily, but you have to think they probably put in 5+ years of work to get there, right? It's not like most people don't just get there overnight. So yeah, that was a good point.
Here's a good one I think would be helpful is suit colors. Are there preferences and colors to stay away from?
Ooh, yeah. I think this
we'll call this just for, well, I mean, it could work for pretty much every division, honestly. So I'll keep it, we'll keep it, I guess, geared a little bit more towards bikini, but probably pretty similar.
Yeah, they're right. Pretty similar. I think the biggest difference is that with like figure suits, you're going to see not all the time, but you see more of that pattern, right? With bikini, don't really want to see that like pattern. But I would typically say this is going to be standard for pretty much every bikini competitor, regardless of your, you know, your skin tone, your hair color. The jewel tones are typically going to work for pretty much everybody. So we're talking like the deep blues, emerald, Kelly green, purple. I kind of refrain from putting red in that group because I don't feel like red can work for everybody, but like a deeper red, a burgundy can usually, a lot of people can pull that off. But the jewel tones are going to be those kind of safe colors. Whereas when you start to dabble with colors such as like yellow, orange, baby pink, lilac, like pastels, you just don't see those as much on stage. And there's a reason behind that. They're kind of riskier colors, right?
It
I don't
doesn't
know.
look right with the tan. It just doesn't look right.
Exactly. Like orange, like think about it. Okay. I mean, I've seen maybe I could count on one hand, like maybe 3 people wear an orange suit before on show, but like it's you're very going to be very susceptible to blending in with that suit, right? And you have to think of how your skin is going to take to that tan and pick your suit color accordingly. Now, another thing to consider too is your hair color. So, and this isn't going to be very common, but like if you are somebody with like exotically colored hair, let's say you have like red hair. I'm not talking like naturally red hair, like you've dyed it actual red. I mean, I would not probably wear like a red suit or anything that's going to be too contrasty. Like I typically find if a girl has like dark red hair that they've dyed, not just strawberry blonde hair that's natural, usually like the greens, like the emerald looks really good on them. But yeah, you want a good contrast, but you don't want too much contrast to the point where it's like, whoa, all the judges see is your suit, because you don't want that either. You want the suit to kind of just bring the full package together.
My suggestion when it comes to this too is just go look on NBC News online and just look at the first call outs of all the pro girls on stage and see what they do. I mean, you don't, if you, everyone wants to be individual, and I understand that, but you don't want to stand out in a bad way. You want your physique to stand out, not your suit color, not your hair, not your make, not any of that stuff.
Yeah.
You want your physique to stand out. And if you come in there and you have like some weird colored suit on, like if you think you're going to rock a black suit and kill it, you win despite that suit. The
It's
suit
like
didn't help you.
the way I look at it is you work for what, 20 plus weeks to come in conditioned for a show. Like, don't let the one thing that potentially not, I don't want to say it would ruin you, but like, don't let the one thing that potentially brings you down a placing or two come down to your suit, right? I didn't
Right.
mention it either, but like black and white are other colors I forgot to mention before. Those are typically colors you don't see much on stage. I mean, white for obvious reasons. Think of how easy it would be to stain that suit, right? With the tan. And black is just typically, it doesn't provide enough like pop and contrast for girls on stage.
And I'm sure Paul has heard this before because I know I have backstage with pros getting feedback. I've heard them directly say, don't ever wear that suit again.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Because
think
people
that-
want to step outside the box. They want to try something different. They're like, please don't ever do that again. They're not going to tell you that at NPC level. They're not.
One thing I do think is very important when it comes to the suit at an NPC level, besides just the color, would be the bottom cut. I see that being
Mhm.
a big one for a lot of girls. I see a lot of girls either getting feedback of, oh, you need to get a smaller bottom cut, like they have too much fabric in the back. Or sometimes if you have too little fabric in the back, it can actually give your glutes the illusion of looking less
Bony.
lean than they actually are, right? Or some girls, their suit bottoms just don't fit right and they pull the side connectors up too high, and then when they hit their back pose, it just makes their glutes look really off put. I think Tyler said it once, like Tyler Mannion said it once in a review, that your bottom should sculpt your glutes, so they shouldn't be like pulled up too high to the point where they're way above your glutes, because that's just going to throw off the look of your glutes.
Mhm.
Well, and one thing I noticed that always, it's like some of the, the cuts in the front are so low and then they're loose. And
Yeah.
then the way they're posing, you're almost looking into the suits from the judges table. And I'm like, they do not want that. So yeah.
Yeah. That's why I say get your suit early, because if you get it, most suit companies, if you ordered like a custom suit, if it doesn't fit properly, you have more than enough time to send it back for alterations, do what you got to do. So that's a perk of ordering it early.
Yep.
All right, Paul, we are to you. Any questions that you want
Yeah.
to?
No, I had a bunch of good ones. So let me just pull it back up here. Let's do this one. Oh, Steven with a silly question.
Oh gosh.
If someone's hit a plateau, how do you cut calories? How much more do you cut the calories?
Well, I think it first comes down to not just assuming that because we hit a plateau, we need to cut calories. I think that it comes down to, I would say, first having a discussion with the client too, because you had mentioned a couple minutes ago, Evan, you had a discussion with a client who admitted that they weren't following the protocol to a T, right? So I think that's the first thing you have to address with the client. If we've hit a plateau, let's talk about, okay, are we hitting our macros precisely? Is meal timing precise? Are you getting in all your cardio? Are you training? And even looking beyond that too, like I see a lot of people hitting plateaus just because their digestion is slow, right? So instead of me decreasing calories, maybe we need to troubleshoot their digestion, take out a few foods or add something in to get their digestion moving. Because I see that being the root cause of a lot of plateaus people hit, especially deeper into prep.
Yeah, and look, if we're in prep with that and we've been at the same caloric count for a while and things stall, we've plateaued at that. Yeah, it's going to get cut. I don't necessarily look at it as a daily cut. I look at it over the week time frame with it. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll just, instead of cutting their calories per day necessarily with it, it is a cut like that, but it's more just let's move to more low days than more high days. Let's do that. And kind of see how that works first before reducing the overall like amounts themselves, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so typically a number for me to drop, let's just assume it is a plateau, right? And we have their calories and their carbs and their cardio or kind of where they're at, and we know, okay, we got to make that next adjustment. I like to drop on a low day 30 to 40 carbs, 5 fat, and bump the cardio up 10 to 15 minutes per session. Like, you know, let's say they're doing 5 sessions at 30 minutes. Let's say they're at 150 carbs on their low days. I might drop their carbs to 120, bump their cardio to 45 minutes, drop their fats from 50 to 45, right? So these are like, you know, in the range. And I will say, you know, my rule for the high days is once their carbs get below their body weight, I start to add in more frequent refeeds. So I'm not going to have a refeed at the beginning of prep, but once, you know, let's say we have a competitor that's 130 pounds and their carbs are down to 130 a day. I might have a 200-gram carb refeed once a week, right? Depending on how they're responding. So like, and I'll bring the refeed down slowly too. So I don't keep the refeed at 200. I might bring the refeed down to 180 after that next change. And so everything's kind of moving in that direction. And then I might add a second refeed day. So what I find is that the leaner you get, the less body fat you have, the more those higher days benefit you. The more body fat you have, again, sliding scale, the less they benefit you. You know, like refeed days will just keep you at maintenance if you have them at the beginning of prep. So yeah.
Well, I have a question for you to see how you would answer this question. I answered a specific way, but I want to see kind of what you say with this. If I have clients that are on a little bit lower foods, right, and we're trying to push to get somewhere, and we have like one refeed a week where the food is higher. There's been a couple times they come back and they're like, well, I ate 30 more or 40 more carbs because I felt like my body needed it on a refeed day.
You know, the hard truth is going to be like, okay, well, that's something you need to discuss with me before you do it. Probably I'll be okay with it because it's data. But if the scale doesn't drop or we go up or we don't see a progress this week, is 120 calories going to make all the difference? I don't know, but you know, it's something that we've got to discuss because yeah, I've had, you know, obviously situations where that worked out and situations where that did not work out. So yeah, it's honestly just about having a conversation and being, depends on the relationship you have with the person at that point, you know. If it's somebody that I'm frustrated with already, that's probably going to be, that could be a tipping point. And if it's somebody that I like trust, that's prepped before, that knows their body, okay, maybe, you know.
That was my kind of response with it too. And especially how long the people have competed with that too. It's like, you haven't ever been stage lean before. How do you kind of know what your body needs?
Right.
Yeah.
Not to be discouraging with that, but like
feelings are a lie at the end of prep. Feelings are a lie. Your
feelings are not facts.
No.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as intuitive eating when you're 6% body fat. I'm sorry. because your intuition is going to screw your physique up.
Right, right. All right, couple more. I have one. So, this will probably be a quick one. Or no, where was it? Okay, do you notice any different patterns when prepping petite competitors? So I guess like our maybe 5 foot and below competitors.
Our A-class queens.
Yeah, we can call them that. Do we notice any different patterns when prepping these people? What do you guys think?
I mean, I just
Uh,
get nervous at the numbers. Like you
That's
got to
what I
remember
was
that
gonna
they're 90
say.
pounds because you're looking at their calories going, gosh, this seems awfully low, but they're just tinier people.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. The number, gosh, because I can think I have had a few girls on stage who have been below 5 foot, and like they get to those low 90s, sometimes even right below 90, and it's kind of scary. But like when you look at them, they don't look. I mean, they look good. They don't look like too tiny, but it's those numbers that can be a little tricky at first glance.
Well, even you, Lexi, like prepping you, like when you get really, really conditioned, you get close to like 103, 104, 102. Those are low numbers. But on your physique, that's where we have to get to show off those details.
Yeah. And like hopefully too, as I add more muscle, that will not be the case. But I've also learned too, because I have a client who's very like we are very similar in the sense of like she's the same height. She's probably gonna have around the same stage weight, but I look at her pictures and it's like, wow. I mean, she doesn't look overly lean, right? But yes, it's a low number, but it is just interesting to sometimes see how people carry weight. And I think, I don't know, it's very interesting. But yeah, I would say petite competitors as far as protocol goes, I don't generally notice them needing like having any type of different protocol than like your normal
No.
C class D person.
You just got to remember that the numbers are going to look odd. Like
They're gonna look
that's why
odd.
I told you I was so excited about Blanca because she's I, I would guess 4'11", but she's at 2,000 calories and she's 10 pounds over stage weight. Like it's pretty awesome.
So that's one thing I wanted to bring up too, is what people need to understand when they see numbers like that person's at 900 calories. That's abusive. I'm like, they're 90 pounds.
Right. Yeah, that's
That's
10
not the
times their body
same.
weight. That's perfectly fine. You know.
That's not the same. And it's, I hear people and I talk to a lot of coaches like, oh, this girl came to me and their coach she was at, 850 calories. And, I was like, okay, for how long?
Right.
How much did she weigh? How tall was she? Well, I didn't ask any of that. Then how do you know it was abusive?
Whenever you hear a
You don't.
coach talking about their client's previous, you always have to take it from the lens of like, okay, is this person just trying to make themselves look good?
Yep.
See that all the time. And so if it's in the interest of improving the sport or the data around the sport, then I think it's more valid. If it's like, oh, look at me, I'm such a good coach, and that other coach that thinks he's a good coach isn't a good coach, then you got to take it for what it is. It's just, self-marketing and ego from a narcissist most cases.
I will say this from a coaching standpoint on here. It's easier to get excited about shorter competitors because their shape, they don't need as much muscle to fill out their frame. So yes, I think on that aspect on things, for newer competitors, it's easier for them to look more impressive as a shorter girl.
Yeah, Daraja, it's easy for you.
Yeah, easy. Jeez.
Well, but just so people have a frame of reference, like Daraja's 5'2", competing at, when she got fourth at the Olympia, she was 117 pounds on stage. It's a lot of muscle.
Got some
It
muscle.
is.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you guys each want to do one more?
Yeah, we could do that.
Quick ones.
I already know all the answers to these, so let's not do any of these right here. Okay. How does a coach determine a peak for individual, what might work for them and what might not work for them? Because everyone needs a little bit different, right? Like some people are really super carb sensitive and you try to put a little bit of carbs and try to up that up and it's not going to go so well.
Yeah.
Now, again, I'll let y'all answer first before I get into this.
Go,
Well,
Lexi.
this kind of comes back to what like Evan, you and I were just discussing a second ago about why it's can be so beneficial to work with a coach before you start prep, because I see one of the big benefits being I get to learn the client, not only how their body responds to certain variables, but I get to also learn their psyche, right? And especially that's important in peak week, right? Because if you have a client who's more sensitive to like they just stress out really easily, you may take a slightly different approach with them on a peak week compared to somebody who's just very even keel, go with the flow. So I think this, this 100% has to do with the coach learning your body ahead of time before prep. That can be so beneficial when it comes down to your peak week and peaking you properly.
Yeah, I mean, it all goes. I'm sorry, Paul.
Why are you sorry for me?
Because you're supposed to answer before me, and I interrupted you.
Yeah, well, the question's a tough one, but really it's just the history of your work with that athlete, because I'm giving my competitors refeeds throughout prep, diet breaks throughout prep. So I've seen how their body responds. And then also I have more experience than anybody in the world at peaking bikini competitors. So yeah, it's funny, when I first used to send out my peaking programs and do the daily check-ins, I would always be making adjustments. Now I might make an adjustment on Thursday or Friday, but it's, I've gotten to the point now, like I can look at an athlete, look at their prep and go, okay, I know exactly how to peak this person. And also peak week is not a static, this is what you have to do. I'll add cardio Friday night if I feel like it's going to help. I'll pull carbs back down. I'll, bump up fat. Like, I've had girls at the last second go have a burger and fries. Like, there's really no rules. No one gives a crap. You walk out on stage and they're judging you. They don't care what you did an hour before or the night before. So for me, it's about, it's about history, but it's also about having the balls to make a decision and sticking with it, which it took me, and I talk about this all the time with learning to coach. But there's been so many times early in my career, I thought, golly, I really want to give this girl a burger and fries, but it's too risky. And then they go out the night after the show, they have the burger and fries, and on Sunday morning, they're like, Coach, look it. And I'm like, right? I don't hesitate anymore. I do not hesitate. If I feel like something's right, I don't want to wonder. I want to know that, I trust my instincts. And sometimes it's easier when I'm not at the show to trust my instincts, because I'm going off like raw data. Sometimes when you're there in person, it's tougher. So how do we know how to peak somebody? The mindset of the athlete and the history of coaching. And then, we don't do things super drastic. We're not giving people diuretics. We're not adding or taking away drugs, or, cutting water from like 2 gallons down to sips on show day. We're not doing that stuff. So I don't think that there's these peak week as this mystery around it. My peak week plans, most people will look at them and be like, are you sure?
That's it.
Yeah.
What's funny is I was listening to a podcast with Mike Arzutel and Flex Lewis, and I remember listening to some of Dr. Mike's stuff on his peaks before, and I was like, wow, there's a lot of messing around going on here. And now he's come around to the same thing that we are, same with Flex, where less is more. Less is more. Don't go try to do a bunch of screwing around and ramping stuff up. And one of the hard conversations to have with some people, right? Especially for people that I pick up to try to help them out through prep, like emergency preps, where they're with another coach, they've already committed, they're not going to be ready for the show. We're just trying to bring the best that we possibly can to stage. And that is not something I like to do, for a number of reasons, but also the fact that they think this is going to be awesome going into the show and food's going to go up and all this stuff. And it's pretty much just another diet week. Because when you're, 10 pounds above stage weight, realistically, there's not so much you can do. And other than backing off a little bit of movement, trying to get some inflammation off, but trying to reduce inflammation's about all we can do at that point with it. So yeah, different for every person, right? And that's why it's really difficult too. And I do recommend for people, if you want to do one show and done, I get that. But how about you do one season first, and go through a couple shows, get yourself peaked a few times, especially as a female. Your first show is probably not going to be the greatest experience in the world, especially if it's a bigger show. You're going to have hair and makeup early in the morning. You're going to be up late. It's going to be stressful, worrying about getting on stage. It's a lot, right? It's a lot. So the second and third shows you do, a lot of that stress falls off. Your looks are going to be better. Your presentation is going to be better. Everything's going to be better with that. So I would like to get more people into, hey, let's do one season and done. If that's the route you want to go, I get that. But let's not do the one show and done, because chances are you're probably not going to enjoy that show day as much as you are the second and third show.
I agree. I think there's a lot of benefit to doing a warm-up show if you can, and kind of, even if you've competed before, like if you're just coming back after a year or whatever, having that first show, you get those jitters, and it's just nice to get those out. And then usually you have a lot better of an experience, and just you have more fun the shows after that. Yeah.
Yep.
Paul, do you have one last quick one you want to do?
How do you pick your first show?
Hmm. Well, I think that I know this. I think this is something all usually recommend, but I typically say your first show, if you can, make it something close to home or make it as close as possible, just to minimize stress. But there could be a lot of different ways you approach this.
I say make sure if you can drive, sweet. It takes the whole flying thing out of it. If you can drive, it's in 5 hours. That's fine. Get in the car, do that. I have some other things I'm going to keep to myself and not put out there on there that I think help with those things. But I think somewhere that's drivable, something that you don't have a bunch of stuff around it, something that you can take off a few days from work leading up to the show, something that you do not have a vacation planned directly after the show. Those are the things, the main things, obviously, other than, the common things we talk about, like a job switch or, really stressful times in your life, things like that. Look, there's going to be no perfect time to pick a show. I can promise you that. There's no perfect preps ever. Not that I can really think of. There's always going to be something that comes up, but having, and another good one I just thought of here is picking a show that you have some other shows around that, maybe within a month or 6-week time frame. So if that show doesn't work out for you, you have some other options. And a lot of that depends on where you live, right? If you live in Florida, there's a show pretty much every other weekend. It's easy. But if you live in Omaha, you may not have that many options, especially if you're talking about drive.
Yeah, I always like the idea of making your first show have the least stress associated with it. So the backyard show that you can drive to is huge, and I would also say attend a show before you pick a show. If you can attend a show of the same promoter, that's going to give you a great sense of how the show is run, how people are treated, how the lighting looks, what the athletes look like. I think it really helps. I always tell the story of, I was thinking about competing in a show, and then I thought, no, I'll never be able to do that. And then I went to a show and it totally changed my perspective, because I remember they walked out with a class called Novice. And I was like, oh, I won't be on stage with Ronnie Coleman and Jay Cutler. So this is better, right? It was just regular people getting on a bodybuilding stage. And I thought, okay, I can see the difference in people who prepped and didn't prep right. Like, I remember looking up there and going like, that guy is peeled. And all year, I did that show the next year, all year, all I thought about was be the leanest guy. Because when that guy walked off the stage, I thought he was massive. He walked by me and he was tiny. But on stage, he looked massive because he was peeled. And that stuck in my head. So go to a show and then, plan accordingly. Give yourself time to like fit that mold. But competing has got a lot of unknowns associated with it. So doing a big trip to your first show, it's just going to be adding to that. I would say don't do your own tan the first show. Let people help you be a diva for your first show.
That's right. We did say that like a long time ago. I remember that was like your motto. I think it was our All Things Show Day podcast that you kept saying, be a diva. But yeah, I agree. I think you can eliminate flying for your first show. I think that's nice, because you just never know how your body is going to respond to a flight before your first show. Now, that's not to say you can't ever fly to a show, but at least I agree with you, Paul. I think making your first show is putting as little stress as possible on your plate and choosing something local or somewhat close is ideal.
Something I would throw in there too, if you want to go to a show before, and I think it's a great idea. And Paul, you might remember when I did nationals last time, we were sitting there watching in men's physique, the A class came up, and I was like, oh my God, these guys are massive. They looked so good. And I was like, give me a second, because it was getting in my head. So I walked, when they got off stage, they walked by me, and I was like, I got these guys by 60 pounds.
Right.
You don't know.
Yeah.
And like perception is so off when you're sitting there. And same thing with conditioning. You could see someone backstage and be like, oh, not there. And they get up on stage under those lights, and you're like, okay, how did that get there? Right. So go to the show, find the people that you think are really impressive, stick around, go get a picture with them afterwards, stand next to them, see how big you are next to them. Right. Like, put that stuff into perspective, and that'll let you know real quick, okay, I'm not near big enough. I don't have near enough muscle, or okay, let's do this.
Yep. Same with bikini. Watch the bikini division walk out. You'll see, I see it all the time. I'll be backstage and there will be a girl that's like either gorgeous or has a ton of muscle or has like, you know, shredded abs, right? Like full six pack. And I'll see my girl being like, coach, like, look at her abs. And I'll be like, hey, it's not an ab contest.
Yep, exactly.
It's a bikini contest. It's about your shape. It's about your posing. It's about how your angles are. You don't know how they peaked. You don't know what they're going to do on stage. And more often than not, the girl with the great abs is sixth place because she doesn't know how to pose. Her tan isn't right. She, you know, little things like that, because there's levels to this, like I said. So, you know, there's a reason why, you know, bikini is a tough division, because there's so much that you got to pay attention to. It's not, you know, the thing that Sandy said on the podcast that really stuck out to me, I've heard a lot of judges say this: the best body doesn't win. The best competitor wins that day. You can walk backstage and be like, oh, that girl's got a better body than this girl, but it doesn't matter if they don't fit the criteria and they're not doing what they're supposed to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, we saw that in the Texas show, Paul. Remember that bikini girl that walked out that was almost figured? She was super impressive, but she didn't win the overall.
Yeah.
But that girl had the most phenomenal physique out of everybody.
I mean, honestly, the
on that
fact
stage.
that she won her class, I remember thinking like, man,
It's shocking. I was surprised they gave it to her.
she was a little overwhelming for her class. But yeah, she did not get the overall.
I mean, I had a client that competed last year, physique wise. I mean, her feedback was, and the judge told her, he's like, this was your show to lose.
Yeah.
She was just too hard.
It's like
Yeah,
bikini
right.
is not, it's not always the coolest physique that wins, or the most like overwhelmingly muscular
all.
physique wins. Like, and that's, you know, where I think a lot of newer competitors get overwhelmed too, is when they see bikini competitors on Instagram posting like a picture of them right after they finished working out, pumped to the max, and they look really big and they look really cool, but it's just bikini is not that, it's not always the coolest look or the most overwhelming with
Well,
muscle.
and you know, I think most competitors are guilty of this at one point or another. You're searching for competitors that you think are doing your show. You're looking at their stories. You don't get to walk out on stage, take your picture in the bathroom and hand that to the judge. That's not what they're judging.
Right.
So it's always amazing to me. Like, you know, there's even some well-known pros that they post their pictures on Instagram and you are like, what? Look at these proportions. Look at these ratios.
Yeah.
And then you take them out of the gym, take them out of the shadows, put them on stage, make them hit a pose. And you're like, wait, what? Where's the girl that I thought was coming to the show? Like, you almost miss them.
Right.
It's
I mean,
it's judged live. Judging exposes you. So that's why putting so much work into posing, conditioning, fullness. You can look great a week out from the show and lose it the week of the show. You can come in flat. You can come in soft. You can change in a matter of hours. And so that's why, you know, there's levels to this. I think we should get shirts that say Pro Physique. There's levels to
there's
this.
levels to this. I would say we got the name of the episode. There's levels to this. And Paul,
Yeah.
what you're piggybacking off, or what you were talking about, like pictures and then seeing him on stage. I can tell you, the first person I saw that I was like, oh my gosh, how does this girl ever lose? And I saw her on stage and I was like, this is no disrespect, she does very well, but I'm like, that doesn't look like the same person. Was like Allison Tetsu.
That's exactly who I was thinking of.
It was, I mean, it doesn't even look real. And she
Well,
gets to say,
and,
it just
you know, I've
doesn't
looked
look the
at some
same.
of her stuff because of that, and I realized when she takes those pictures, she has a black suit that she ties up into her waist, so it gives the illusion that her waist is smaller. She's also using
Okay.
like some shadowy lighting.
Yeah,
She
that
does
is
have wild proportions, and she does have
Yeah.
a wild physique.
Yes, it's great. It's just not like the pictures.
But I haven't seen that translate to the stage
Yeah.
yet. She's obviously won some pro shows. She's going to the Olympia, but I
She's very
haven't
good.
seen. Yeah, I haven't seen it where like I'm so, and maybe, you know, obviously pictures capture one thing, but she's got absolutely stunning proportions. But I haven't seen that. And again, bikini's not about craziest proportions. It's about, you know, hourglass. Like that was the word we used. And if hourglass doesn't have complete like 90-degree turns to it, you know, and she's got that crazy tiny waist. So
Yeah. Cool.
Um,
Well,
absolutely.
should we wrap it up there since we've been on for a hot minute?
yeah, let's wrap it up, and we're gonna drive over to the Clash.
Yes. I would sit here and say, if you're going to be at Clash, say hello, but this will obviously come out on Monday. So that'll
They'll
be,
say hello. I've got the bikini booth ready to go, so we'll be there.
yes, excited.
And my
All right,
shirts.
guys. Well, thank you guys for following along the Pro Physique code. Make sure to give us a like or whatever they're supposed to do on here. What are they supposed to do, Lexi?
I think you can like, at least I know on YouTube you could like.
Oh, I
'cause
like the comments. I try to reply to all the comments, so I
Same,
appreciate them.
same. I've been trying to do the same. Yeah, I think also sharing like screenshotting us and sharing it
Yeah.
on Instagram if you enjoy the episode, that really helps too.
Perfect. All right, guys, I will see you all in a couple days.
All right. Bye
Sounds good.
guys.
So yeah.